There are certain thoughts you don't follow all the way through. You notice them, they appear for a moment, and then you move away. Not because they are unimportant, but because staying with them feels risky. They might lead somewhere uncomfortable, they might raise questions you don't feel ready to answer, or they might change how you see something you've been holding steady for a long time. So instead you let them pass. And on the surface, everything continues as usual. But somewhere underneath, those unfinished thoughts remain. This is where literature does something very specific, something that's easy to miss. It gives you a place to think without being entirely inside your own head. When you're reading, the thoughts aren't yours alone, they're carried by someone else's voice. A character, a narrator, a writer who has already shaped the experience into words. Which means you can approach something difficult indirectly. You're not confronting your own life head on, you're sitting beside someone else's. And that creates a kind of safety, a comfort zone. Not because the subject becomes easier, but because the distance makes it possible to stay with it longer. You can think about grief through someone else's story. You can sit with confusion, uncertainty, and even discomfort without immediately needing to resolve it in your own life. And that matters more than it seems, because most of us don't avoid thinking, we avoid thinking alone. When a thought feels too heavy or too unclear, we move away from it, not because we don't want to understand it, but because we don't know how to stay with it without being overwhelmed. Literature changes that. It offers a kind of quiet companionship. You're not the only one inside that thought anymore. Someone else has already been there, already found a way to hold it, describe it, sit with it. And that makes it easier for you to do the same. This is where writing comes in, because reading opens the door, but writing lets you step inside. After reading something that stays with you, you're not starting from scratch, you're continuing a line of thought that's already been made more approachable. So when you take a page, just one, you're not forcing yourself into reflection, you're extending a conversation. You might begin with a line that stayed with you, or a feeling you can't fully explain, and instead of trying to solve it, you just stay there. The page becomes a place where that thought can exist without needing to be pushed away, without needing to be resolved immediately. That's what makes it safe. Not because nothing difficult appears, but because you're no longer carrying it entirely on your own. And over time, something shifts. You become more willing to stay with your own thoughts. Not because they've become easier for you, but because you've experienced what it feels like to hold them without being overwhelmed by them. If you think about it, some of the most important realizations in your life didn't come from forcing clarity. They came from staying with something long enough for it to reveal itself. And that kind of staying needs a place. So don't ask, why do I avoid certain thoughts? Ask, where do I go when I need to think about something without feeling alone in it? You don't have to answer that immediately. But the next time a thought feels too heavy to hold directly, try this. Pick up something you've been meaning to read. Let yourself sit inside someone else's words for a while, and then take a page and write. Not to figure it all out, just to stay with it a little longer than you usually would feel comfortable. Because sometimes thinking safely isn't about avoiding the difficult parts. It's about finding a way to approach them without having to carry the entire weight on your own.